Alright, here's the final version of Castle Dain, something that I've been working on for quite some time, version 1.0, so this is the finished product. I'm the type of person, though, that always finds a little something to fix here and there, but I kind of figured, I've got to get the final version out. So, if I do find something or need to fix something, I can always do a 1.1, but, this is pretty much the finished game here, for all intents and purposes. So, I've actually made two videos. This is like the technical video that explains what exactly I did between version 0.9 and this final version. There's another video, which is like a fun video. It's a game trailer video. So if you don't care about the technical stuff, you could just skip to the end, and I've got a little link to the little game trailer video that kind of highlights, what you do in this game. The main thing that I did that I wanted to do was convert it to ProDOS, because originally it was in DOS 3.3 because that's the only way I knew how to do assembly programming. But I did talk with some people at the Facebook group Call -151, and they were helpful in setting me up to kind of figure out this ProDOS stuff. So I actually have another video about that, how it's called Loading Picks in ProDOS Assembly. So it explains how I figured out how to load things using ProDOS in assembly. So that was a big thing. So that took a while, as you can imagine, to convert things over. The main thing that I had to convert was everything that loaded, because I have a ton of files in there and stuff. And one thing that I discovered was, I was thinking, all right, so whenever I load things, it seems like I'm using the full path name, and for some reason, like the prefix, like the volume wouldn't save. So I found on the Stack Exchange website, somebody had a similar question about, why do I have to put the full path name, or why is the prefix like empty when you first load the disk? So there were a couple answers on there, and believe it or not, Peter Ferry, he answered, and he gave like some sample code. So I used that sample code, and that way, if there is no prefix when the disk loads, it actually figures out what the volume name is, and it puts that in as the prefix. So that code was helpful. So that's on Stack Exchange. So also, when I converted everything to ProDOS and I threw it on the disk with ProDOS and Basic System and Startup and everything like that, it didn't fit. Like, I was short like maybe 10 blocks, and I'm like, oh great, ProDOS is taking up some space. I want it to fit all on one side of a disk. So what I did was I remember, like, I have a title page, and in DOS 3.3 that's 33 sectors, and in ProDOS it's 17 blocks, and I'm like, yeah, 17 blocks is a lot for a title page. Why? I should be able to get that down to a lower number by compressing it, because I remember years ago in Nibble magazine it talked about compressing. There was like a program, I think it was in Nibble magazine, where you can compress like an HDR page. If there was like repeated data, it would compress it. But I couldn't find, the Nibble program. It was probably for DOS 3.3 anyway. So I went on the internet and I found out there was this fhpack compression, which was made by Andy McFadden. He's the same guy that did Cytopress. And so it's like you take the file, you use Cytopress to get the file off your disk, and then you put it in the Windows environment, and then you can compress it in the Windows environment and then throw it back on your disk, and it'll get it down there. So I found this website that had this fhpack compression, and so then it came with this file that ends in .cpp, which is like a C++ file. So then I had to figure out how to like compile it, because I don't program in C++, and so I had to go on the internet and figure out how to compile it. So that was kind of a journey in itself. And so I got it to compile into this exe file, which is what I needed. And so then once I got that exe file, then I just went into the command prompt, and I typed it in, what I needed to type in. So my picture was called Apple II, because I tested it on this Apple picture that I used in my last video. It's like the Apple logo with an apple next to it. So my file was called Apple II. I put the .pic at the end. And so I used this command to convert it, and it compressed it, and then I used CiderPress to bring it back. And so you can see that my new, right in the middle there, you can see is Apple III. That's like the converted file. It's got this weird file type, the hex 08. But you can see it got it down to 3 blocks. So the Apple II was the original picture that's 17 blocks, and so it compressed it down to 3 blocks, which is great. When I did that with my title page, it was a little bit more complex than the Apple picture, and I got it down to 7 blocks, which is great because it saved me 10 blocks. Here's like a basic program called ProLoad LZ4. And so you can see in line 20, you have to load the converter program, I guess you would call it, the LZ4FH at location hex 300. Line 30, I would load my compressed file, and I just loaded it in the hex position 4000. And you have to put like this type, this 08. If you don't, it won't work. There in line 30 at the end there, you can see. If you do it in assembly, it's more forgiving. You don't have to put the type. And then 40 is where you have to poke the decimal information of where the source is. So that's the source of my file. And then the destination in line 50, that's where I've got, that's the page 1 of high-res graphics. So you're basically sending that information over to there, HDR, and then call 768. It runs that thing in line 20 there. So you do need like a little, I guess, portion of that in order to get it to work. But it does save you space. So once I saved that, then I had some space left on the disk, and because that was one of my biggest files, I think. So if you run it, the other thing that's cool about this is like it runs it fast. I mean, it loads the picture fast. I mean, everything in ProDOS loads faster than DOS 3.3. I noticed that everything was loading much faster, which is great. You want it to run faster so you're not sitting there waiting for the disk to load the information. So the other thing is kind of a side note, is that when I converted things to ProDOS, it wasn't just dealing with the loading stuff. I also had to deal with the high-res character generator. It didn't work in ProDOS. I just used the one from the assembly lines book, chapter 31, and like it was just blank. It wasn't typing anything on the screen. I'm like, oh great, what's going on here? So luckily, Chris Torrance has a little footnote there on the bottom of page 312 that says in ProDOS you have to change the output vector. So I'm like, okay, so I figured that out. And so once I changed the output vector, it worked. So thank goodness that footnote was there. Otherwise, I would have gone crazy figuring out why the character generator wasn't working. So as I said, things run faster. I've, with the exit program at the bottom, I just had that go into a quit code, which is something that I found in that beneath Apple ProDOS book, that you could put in a quit code, and then the quit code goes right to this bitsy by. Since I'm using ProDOS 8, version 2.4.2, the quit code goes to this bitsy by, which is nice, because then you could load something else when you're done with it. So then, another thing is that, of course, the screens would load so fast that you couldn't even read the information. Like I would have this screen that had controls. All right, what are the controls? So when it's loading, you could sit there while it's loading and you could look at the controls, but it was loading so fast, especially in an emulator, probably not as much fast on real hardware, but it was just zipping through it. So then I had to press a key, so that way it wouldn't just zip through it and you'd miss all the controls. So I think that covers everything that I worked on. There were some like one little bug I think that I fixed, because like I said before, I'm always finding a little thing here or there. So hopefully it should be working okay. I mean, the one thing that I spent some time on was trying to figure out, the encounters. I don't want them to happen too often that it gets annoying, but it has to happen often enough where you can build up your character, because if you're barely running into any monsters, then your statistic or your attributes won't be going up. So I was always kind of manipulating that number of, how often the encounter should be and stuff like that. And it's probably not perfect, but I could always go in and fix it another time if I get a lot of feedback saying, hey, this isn't working the way it should. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, thanks for listening to all this technical stuff about how I did it. Once again, if you want to watch the fun video, that's going to be posted here on the right side. As always, feel free to like and subscribe, make a comment. I hope you enjoy this, and you can always let me know how it goes. Thanks for watching.